Awesome. Um, Good morning, everyone. My name is Scott Wright. I'm Deputy Director in the Infrastructure Division at DFA. I am joined here with my colleague, Marianne Maestas. She is the gatekeeper in everything training related, for sure. We're also here with our colleagues from the Department of Cultural Affairs. So thank you all for joining us. So today I'm going to talk about the capital outlay overview, the request process, the legislative session, some key components of the grant agreement, and the administration of capital outlay. And then I'm going to turn it over to Department of Cultural Affairs to talk about arts and public places. So high level overview, it really starts with the ICIP, and then it goes through the Legislative Finance Committee hearing, and then it's boiled down or filtered down into the capital outlay recommendation. Then the legislative session starts. There's a capital outlay bill review, and then the governor has a period of time after the legislative session to enact law. Then we also do a review of EO6, and I will get into that in further detail. If they are general obligation bonds or severance tax bonds, State Board of Finance has the bond sale. And then the reporting piece, those projects that are just passed in the capital outlay bill are uploaded into the CPMS system, and then they are budgeted, which is where we are approaching right now. And then finally, the grant agreements are issued. So what is capital outlay? It's primarily a fixed asset, which could include, improving an existing asset or acquiring a new one, any kind of renovations or repairs. It also includes the planning phase. So if folks are planning to design a project, that's also included in the capital outlay. And then, construction of roadways, fences, ditches, etc. So the first step in the capital outlay process is to request from Legislative Council Services. And this was done this year. I think December 13th was the deadline. So you can anticipate the middle of December kind of deadline for the capital outlay requests. And these are all, they require signatures from legislative sponsors. So whoever your all's reps or senator is, they participate in this process and they sign off on it. Also, if anybody has any questions, just please put it in the chat, or just unmute yourself and ask any questions at any time. So the next step in this process is requesting from the Office of the Governor. And you need to request it first through Legislative Council Services because you're assigned an LCS or ID, and that is going to be required for the executive request. So please submit those as you are able, but you just need to know that if there is if you do need to request funding from the Legislative Council Services and or the governor's office, there is a two-step process. And the reauthorizations, those typically happen for an extension of time, but they're also reauthorizations for a change in scope, a change in agency. And those are actually submitted and accepted through the middle of February. So if you do have a capital outlay project that needs to be reauthorized for any reason, that you can anticipate a deadline around the middle of February. So a little bit about the legislative session. There are budget committees, there's subcommittees, and then they hear it eventually on the floor. Typically, the capital outlay bill, the GOB bill, and the severance tax bonds are typically towards the end of the legislative session, and are traditionally signed in the days leading up to the end of the governor's signing period. So there are three major components to the capital outlay request. And the first is the questionnaire. Every appropriation has a questionnaire that's associated with it, regardless of funding source. And so entities should receive a link in an email from the state agency to complete those questionnaires. And I'll get into it in a few minutes, but there's there's several opportunities to complete these questionnaires, and it's important that if you're not ready to receive the funding, you don't necessarily need to ask for it right away. The other piece is audit compliance, and it's incredibly important that either an agreed upon procedures or AUP or an audit is submitted to the Office of the State Auditor in a timely manner. And then there is the issue of anti-donation. If there is a capital appropriation that is includes a third-party nonprofit organization, there is a process through that. And I think just I was previously at DFA and I came back, and I think since I've been back, um, the anti-donation has been more manageable now than I think it ever has been. So I spoke about this earlier. The questionnaires, those links are sent out, and it's one link per bill. And there, if you have multiple capital appropriations, there's a drop down, and you can select whichever questionnaire it is that you're willing to or advocating for. Again, two times a year. So now we're doing them right now in the spring. We'll also do them again in the fall for House Bill 450, which is the capital outlay bill this year. We also did questionnaires for Senate Bill 275 and House Bill 505 from 2024 and 2023, respectively. So some of the critical components of the questionnaire are the first is the 5% encumbrance within 6 months. That's a requirement from the feds with respect to the bonds, but it also applies to general fund as well. Um, if you're not able to complete a fully functional phase of the project, we're probably not going to include that in the questionnaire or approval process. Even if you request, um, let's just say hypothetically $3 million, and you only got 1 million, if you're still able to do, the plan design and get ready to go out to bid, and you're well positioned to complete a fully functional phase, please complete the questionnaire to that effect. EO6, Executive Order 2013-006, is really about audits and the timely submission of audits. So once those audits are submitted to the Office of the State Auditor, they review them, and then once they're released from that office, the state agencies review the audit and make a determination, uniform funding criteria is what we call it, to determine whether there's a potential risk associated with the capital outlay. And also, I did want to bring up, there was House Bill 493 was passed during this legislative session. And so if you haven't read that, I recommend reading it. But what it did was allow for one additional year. So right now, the 2024 audits are due. And what this legislation said is that if you have your 2023 audit in, you can still potentially receive a grant agreement. And I do want to caveat that with saying, it's not essentially a get out of jail free card. It means that you still need to submit your audits. And if you have any kind of special conditions that are imposed on you all, or fiscal agent, there is an appeal process that you all can negotiate on whether that was a fair determination or not. We're currently in the process of writing that policy. It is effective July 1st, so we have that on our plates. But if you're a year behind on your audit, I highly recommend reading through that bill. And thank you, Marianne, for including that in the chat box. So really, there's four kinds of determinations that state agencies make. The clean, you either didn't have any material weaknesses or findings, but there was, even if you did, it can still be determined a clean audit if it doesn't pose a risk to the capital outlay. Another classification is special conditions. So let's say if you got an audit finding for you weren't able to maintain your assets, the state agency may work with you, and if you are able to come up with an asset management listing and an action plan to maintain that asset listing, they may release your special conditions. Fiscal agent is kind of one step beyond that. It typically is a municipality or a county that serves as the fiscal agent. They typically associate that with an administrative fee to essentially by acting as the fiscal agent, they do take some risk because it does go on their audit, which is why there's traditionally an administrative fee associated with it. And then there's not compliance. If you haven't submitted your audit, it really limits your ability to receive, administer capital outlay. So my suggestion would be if the choice is between going back and forth with your auditor about a finding or a material weakness and submitting the audit, I would submit the audit even if you don't agree with it. There is an opportunity to address any of the audit findings that you all may have, but my suggestion is to please just submit your audit as soon as possible. Anti-donation, this is typically third-party nonprofits. They're not allowed to receive capital outlay directly. And so what happens in these instances is the municipality, the county, the tribe, whoever it might be, will actually own the asset, even if somebody else may be using it or leasing it or operating the capital outlay. So the IGA is the next step in the process. And so what we do is right now we're reviewing responses from the questionnaires. We're coordinating with the state agencies to come up with, fiscal agent determination, special conditions implementation. And then we're going to upload that. Every project that's ready to go, we're going to put in the budget upload. Share is our financial database, and once it's in Share, then the state agencies have the green light to go ahead and proceed with issuing grant agreements. We also have the link at the bottom of the page or the slide is where you can see our capital outlay grant agreements, notice of obligation, request for reimbursement. Any of those documents can be found on our website. So this, I have to put like a disclaimer out there. DFA Legal Counsel has kind of recrafted the grant agreement for capital outlay, and I anticipate that for all the projects starting with J and then a 4 number or anything from House Bill 450 this year, will likely include this template. So I kind of caveat that with saying that, this may not, it may not be implemented this year, but I did want to give you all a heads up that there is a likelihood that the capital outlay agreements, as you know them, may be a little different from what you're used to. A lot of it is the same. The scope of work, the bill, and all the references to the section, all of that is included in your grant agreements, as well as arts and public places if it applies. And I'm not going to foreshadow or give away anything from the Department of Cultural Affairs. They can talk about it much more intelligently than I can. But the page one of the grant agreement is really some critical information that you all will need when you're completing a notice of obligation or a request for reimbursement. The next part in here that I just wanted to highlight was the notice of obligation and it needing to be obligated prior to the reversion date. So if you submit a notice of obligation, even if the grant is about to expire, you may not be reimbursed if it's after you won't be reimbursed if it's after the reversion date. So simply because you have an obligation and it's approved by the administrating state agency, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to be reimbursed. Goods and services have to be received by the end of the grant or the expiration date, which is going to be June 30th of whatever year as applicable. Another couple things is, and I kind of spoke on this already, but simply having the obligation does not necessarily mean that you will be reimbursed. It does need to happen before the reversion date. And then So yeah, it doesn't qualify as an expenditure simply to have something encumbered. So it's a really important step in the process, is obligating and getting an approved notice of obligation, but you're not quite off the hook yet. The reimbursement does need to take place, and goods and services need to be received prior to the expiration of the grant. Reporting, for those with a keen eye, you'll see in AA, they still reference the BFM, but right now we're doing CPMS, and the June reporting period is going to be the last time we use CPMS. We're transitioning into a new system, a much improved system. I think you all will really like it. We're excited to roll it out, and we're going to do, of course, some training to make sure that you all understand the process. But I really hope that you all are going to be pleased. We're transitioning away from the 1984 Access database we all know as CPMS into something that is a little bit more modern and a little more intuitive. So we're excited to roll that out. Request for reimbursement, if you all don't know, you do have the potential to request a disbursement as opposed to a reimbursement, but there are some strings attached to that. There is the 5-day rule, if any of you are familiar with that process, where you need to request the money, receive the disbursement, and make payment to the vendor and provide that to your state agency within 5 business days. So this is something new that is potentially being proposed. This is probably the most significant of the proposed changes, but 25% encumbrance as opposed to 5% what it currently is. That comes with its own unique challenges. I don't know that DFA or the state is going to keep that 25%, but that is considerably larger than what is currently at the 5%. So I would recommend, please, especially if any of the grant agreements are going to change in terms of content, please read through it and understand essentially what you're signing up for with the capital outlay. Record retention, so 6 years from the completion of the project, you need to retain those files. Record retention and the IPRA requests, those are all it's state funding, and so it's important to maintain those records and make sure that you all are keeping them for the required amount of time. There is a clause in there specific to uniform funding criteria. It may be adjusted just based on House Bill 493. We may have to do some adjustments there, but really, if you take anything away from my piece of this presentation, it's please just submit your audits as timely as you are able. I think the state agencies, certainly DFA, we'll work with you all to the extent that we can, but it really kind of ties our hands if you don't have an audit submitted. Notice of obligation. So after you've gone through the procurement process, it's important to submit your notice of obligation. This can be for general services under 60,000. You can just collect quotes. If you're going to go over 60,000, you can go out to bid. You can also use the statewide price agreements. There are some cooperative purchasing agreements that you all may utilize. I do want to note that there are administrative fees that are not reimbursable under the grant for administrative fees that could be tied to cooperative purchasing. You all can also use, if you have an on-call architect or engineer, you can utilize them to do your plan design. But these are legally, they're obligating financial, it's basically a financial promise. So if you all enter into an agreement, you want to submit your notice of obligation and make sure that you're going to be reimbursed. In a perfect world, the state agency agrees with everything that you're going to be doing under the authorizing language of the grant. But it's important to not put yourself in a position where you've issued a purchase order or you executed a contract under the presumption that you're going to be reimbursed. You really need to get that notice of obligation submitted to the state agency and approved so that you can continue to move forward. Here's what they look like. They're on our website as well. Just one thing I will note is the grant amount is subtracted for arts and public places. And I won't get into the details of that because our friends from Department of Cultural Affairs will explain that. But it's important to capture the total amount of notice of obligations to date. That's basically everything that you all have incurred expenses or liabilities on. And once it's approved by the state, you know that for any financial activity that you will be reimbursed. So the notice of obligations are very important. And then after the notice of obligation is approved, you all start construction or whatever the case might be for that particular project. But submitting the reimbursement is equally important, I would say, to the notice of obligation. Here's an example, and as opposed to the way the notice of obligation was and notice of obligation to date, this one just deals with the grant balance. So you can see that, this is the third pay request. AIPP did apply. They're requested 12,000 between pay requests 1 and 2, and this payment is for $100,000. We should have a drop down on the pay request form for all the J 2025 projects. The state's fiscal year does start July 1st and it goes through June 30th. So fiscal year 26 is July 1st, 2025 through June 30th, 2026. Some state agencies may require special conditions. This is a template that's used by some state agencies. Some may use it, some may not, but really, if you're looking at your audit and you're trying to determine whether a state agency may or may not apply special conditions, these are typically what the special conditions surround. So any kind of audit issues that regard, procurement, budget, capital assets, travel per diem, timely audits, and cash management. Those are probably the areas where if the state agency reviews your audit and there are issues in these areas, they are likely to impose special conditions or a fiscal agent. CPMS reporting, I won't go too far into detail. This period is going to be the last period, so June is going to be the last time. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that we use CPMS. To log in, you basically just click the login button. If you are a local entity, you click on local entity. If you're a state agency, you click there as well. Your username is your fiscal agent ID, and then your password is your password. One thing I just will mention is if you're reporting, you see there's two links. One of them is on kind of the left-hand side of the page, and one of them is on the right. If you're trying to report in CPMS, don't click the one on the right. It's basically just a PDF of the project. If you're trying to make updates, please click on the left-hand side. And the local entity data is down there at the bottom. The state agency that is administering the capital outlay will complete the pink section in the middle, and then everything above that is driven from our share financial database. Here are some things that are included in the reporting at the local agency level. It's something that we're looking at in the new system on what kind of information contained here is really important and valuable to legislative sponsors, to the office of governor, to your constituents in the community. So what we're doing is we're looking at this very carefully to decide, what key information do we need, and what is less important or doesn't help to inform the general public about the status of the capital outlay project. Here are just some definitions on what all of these things mean. So hopefully this is helpful if you're unsure about what we're asking for in the CPMS system. This is not all of our division. We were just actually created July 1st of 2024. And so we're a new division. If you all have any questions regarding ICIP, there's a deadline today for senior centers, so I'll give Marianne a plug. But she's super helpful. So if you have any questions regarding ICIP, she's really a great point of contact, and she'll help you through that process. We do have, our rural and frontier equity ombuds. The work that they do has been pretty incredible, and helping folks to get in compliance or receive their capital outlay. If you haven't spoken to Michael or Jason, I really recommend reaching out to them. And then also the funding assistance navigator. This person, Lauren, she can help you fully fund a project. So in the example I gave earlier, you requested $3 million and you only got $1 million in capital outlay. What Lauren does is she identifies opportunities to where you could supplement your project and fully fund it and complete it. So really, anybody on our team, you can reach out. We're happy to help always. So don't be a stranger. So with that being said, I've kind of been monitoring the chat. I haven't seen any questions pop up, but if you do have any questions before we turn it over to the Department of Cultural Affairs, please ask, or if you if you want to reach out to us via email, if you're not feeling comfortable just asking us questions in an open forum, please feel free to reach out to us via email, or you can call us or text us or whatever it is. We're happy to help in any way that we possibly can. So with that being said, I will say thank you all so much for being here. I really appreciate it. And if there aren't any questions, I will turn it over to DCA.
Hi, everybody. Good morning. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to talk about public art in a second. I do recognize a few folks in the attendees. So shout out to those that I'm currently working with, or our team is working with, or we've worked with in the past. So shout out to the City of Gallup, Isleta Pueblo, Valencia County, Taos County, Los Alamos. And if I don't know you, I want to get to know you. So if you could in the chat, if you could put what government you're currently with, municipality, county, tribal government, that would be awesome. So then we can get to know you and we can work together on a public art project. First things first, I'm going to have my team introduce themselves so you can get to know us. In true State Gov fashion, we're a tiny team. There's 3 of us and we cover all 33 counties. So I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to pass it over to Kirsten Felrath and then Claude Smith. So good morning. I'm Meredith Dvorsky. I'm the Public Art Director here at Department of Cultural Affairs. And Kirsten?
Hi, Kirsten Felrath, one of the Art and Public Places Program Coordinators. You probably received many emails from our team. This is just a face to the name. Delightful to see so many of you showing up in the chat here. Just want to say that this is a really fantastic program and statute that the state has put into place. We are potentially like the largest funding source for artists in our fantastic state of New Mexico. So while this is like a very process heavy experience sometimes, when we're bothering you and you're actually picking out artworks, it's making a huge difference to the arts and culture sector here in New Mexico and supporting a whole bunch of artists who are doing their very best to survive these days. So just want to give that little human component to this process heavy job that the 3 of us are very passionate about. So thank you.
Hey there, I'm Claude Smith, Art and Public Places Program Coordinator, working with Kirsten and Meredith. I just want to echo what Kirsten said. We work really hard with artists to try and get them paid to support what they're doing. A lot of that comes, government support from the arts at this level, just really doesn't happen outside of this program. So this program is miraculous in that sense. And think about it from the standpoint of economic development. Like, we are putting money into the pockets of folks to continue what they're doing, who are also going to go patronize businesses locally and regionally with that money. So keep that in mind as you go through the AIPP process and capital outlay as well.
Fantastic. Awesome. Well, if that wasn't a plug, thank you, team. I'm going to share my screen with you guys. While I go through the presentation, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat as well. You can raise your hand and we'll call on you. So feel free to interrupt me anytime as we move through this. And here we go. So Art and Public Places. Who are we? So we are your state's arts agency. We are one of 56 federally recognized state agencies in the country. We were established in the 60s when the National Endowment for the Arts was established. And the goals for an arts agency at the time in the 60s was to provide civic beautification, foster appreciation for the arts, and encourage creative activity. So why am I mentioning this? Well, if there's anything arts and culture related that you are doing in your community that maybe we can help you with, please reach out. Everything you see listed on the right side is some of the things that we support in all 33 counties in the state. So whether it's grant funding, maybe we can provide money, maybe we can provide resources, maybe we can help connect you with artists, maybe we can help you in any other way that's arts and culture related, please feel free to reach out to us. It could be any of us on the AIPP team, or you can reach out to our office and we can connect you with the right resource. So let's get into art in public places. So the Art in Public Places program, unlike the division, we were actually established in 1986. So we're going to hit 40 years next year. Big deal. And really what it states, it's a pretty small statute. You could go read it on our website. But what it states in short is that if there's any capital outlay appropriations allocated to new construction or major renovation of a building, a public building, 1% of that total appropriation must be set aside for the acquisition of public art for that building or site. And that, of course, has some caveats. There's some rules and regs in terms of what becomes eligible and what isn't eligible. Some of those things are the appropriated amount must be over 100,000. So we're not going to look at any appropriations under that amount. 1% will also be taken from auxiliary buildings. So that includes maintenance, warehouses, water treatment plants, correctional facilities. Obviously, we understand that those are not publicly accessible necessarily. You can't just walk into a water treatment plant. So what that means is even though we're taking that 1% for public art, we then automatically roll it into what we call our auxiliary fund. That auxiliary fund means that we can move those funds to a more conducive site. So yes, we're taking 1% for your water treatment plant, but maybe we can move that over to your local library or your senior center, or maybe a local elementary school, and we can do a public art project there. Appropriation language is key, you guys. I do get the really sad question of how do I opt out or how do I get out of AIPP? Well, language is key because when they're being reviewed, unfortunately, in the last decade, maybe longer, a lot of folks have adapted the practice of putting that beautiful first line in every appropriation, which is to plan, design, construct, renovate, equip, furnish, improve, yada, yada, yada. The problem with that is if you say improve, renovate, construct, and it's not clear whether or not that's attached to a building, you could become AIPP eligible because we're basing it on that language. So please keep that in mind. Now, if it's a minor renovation, let's say it says to plan, design, construct, renovate, equipped a new roof, then that would be considered a minor renovation, not a major renovation, because all that money is going towards a roof. Now, if it's a roof plus security system plus HVAC, plus we're going to extend the building, we're going to add restrooms, whatever the situation is, that is then a major renovation, and that would become AIPP eligible. Obviously, we're going to try to interpret the language as best as possible. So any kind of infrastructure projects are not AIPP eligible. So if we're talking about infrastructure for a building or infrastructure like building a parking lot, or maybe it's a road project, something like that. Maybe it's broadband, maybe it's water system, sewer. None of those would be AIPP eligible. Remember, it's only for a public building. Now, things that are a building but not eligible are purchases, prefabs, and demolition. So if you're demolishing a building with your appropriation, we will not look at that. If you're buying a prefabricated building, we are not looking at that. If there's a purchase you're making, maybe you're just a police department buying cruisers and you're going to equip those, we won't be looking at any purchases. Ooh, good question in the chat from Sharon. What happens if your grant expires? Well, I'm going to get to that here in a second, but to foreshadow your question there, AIPP never expires. But there's some caveats to that. So hang in there one sec. So that's eligibility. If you have any questions about eligibility, feel free to go to our website at nmarts.org. If you go to AIPP, we have an eligibility PDF you can download, and it explains all of this in detail. But if you straight up just don't know, even after you read that, feel free to reach out to Claude, Kirsten, or I, and we can definitely help you out and look up appropriations. So what does that mean? What are some of these buildings that are getting AIPP? Well, it's almost any public building you can think of. And you can see here a nice little cross section, any kind of government building, any kind of community center, senior center, library, animal shelter, courthouse, fire station, police station, hospital, schools, any kind of school, could be university, could be K through 12. Anything you can really think of, museums, military facilities, lots of things. So how do you know if AIPP came out? Scott kind of foreshadowed this a little bit. On page 1 of your agreement, it flat out tells you in that second paragraph there highlighted whether AIPP came out of your appropriated amount. And if you want me to zoom in on that, there you go. It will show you your total appropriated amount minus the AIPP. Actually, it states art in public places in case you forget what AIPP means. And yeah, so you should know if you see that agreement. Now, maybe you don't, maybe you're the person in the office who doesn't see the agreement. Well, there is CPMS for as long as we've got it until we switch over to a new system. But if you go to CPMS, it will also be in there. So there's 2 places you can look, this blue section and this pink section. I chose this one from UNM in particular just because of a few things. One, it shows that there is a $200,000 cap on art in public places. So it's 1% or 200K. We don't go over 200K per appropriation. So you can see here the total appropriated amount that UNM received was 27 million, but obviously we didn't take 270,000. We took 200,000. A few fun facts. So this is going back to Sharon's question. So I'm going to hit it here in a second. Funds become available when the bond sells. So even though you might know right after the session is closed and after governor vetoes have happened, and we know for a fact you're getting capital outlay. And even if you contact me and I've already reviewed them and we know it's coming out, we won't actually have access to those funds until the corresponding bond sells, unless it's general fund. But even with general fund, I'm going to say right now, I don't get that funding right away. There's a whole process we have to do between us and DFA to get those funds transferred. So just keep that in mind. There are a few months after session is over before we get all the ducks in a row and we can spend those funds. Another fun fact, funds can be aggregated. So let's say you're doing a new construction project and you're going back to the legislature maybe 2 or 3 years in a row to get appropriations to finish your project. Everybody on this call is probably very familiar with the fact that construction has gotten very expensive, and things change as you go through a construction project. Things get delayed, prices of materials goes up, and so you probably have to come back multiple times to get funding to finish your project. If that happens, we can wait until we get all of the funding for your project and then put all of those AIPP amounts together to do maybe a larger project or maybe acquire more work. So just let us know if we contact you or if you contact us. If we know there's more funding coming down the line, we can definitely wait and aggregate those funds. You can kick in your own funds. So let's say maybe we're really close to an amount where we could do a commission project, but maybe we're not quite there. If your county, municipality, tribal government has funding that they would like to add to AIPP funds in order to raise your budget, we can absolutely do that. We've also done fun things where we've worked with local foundations. We did a fun project in Hobbs where we worked with the Maddox Foundation and they kicked in something crazy like $200,000 to add to their AIPP so we could do a massive project down there for the city. So keep that in mind. Sharon, to your question, AIPP funds never revert and they never expire. But to your question about what happens, there has been an administrative code update to the Art and Public Places Act. We have an administrative code that sort of details how we spend these funds. There has been an update. It actually happened in 2019. So it's been a little while, and you might hear from us with regards to this update, because after 4 years and 5 documented attempts, If you just continue to ghost us, we will take your money and spend it elsewhere. Now that's a drag because that means either it goes somewhere else in your municipality, somewhere else in your county, or maybe it leaves your entire part of New Mexico altogether and we spend it somewhere else. And of course we don't want that. So please reach out to us or please respond when we reach out to you. Because if we can't get a hold of you or we just can't get these funds spent after 4 years, and that's 4 years since allocated. So if you've got funds out there that are really old, which hopefully after this year, we won't have that anymore because I've been working really hard to make sure we don't have funds that are more than 5 years old. Then just keep that in mind. So technically it doesn't revert or expire, but we do have the discretion to just take those funds if we just cannot get it done. So what are the ways in which you can actually acquire public art with your AIPP funds? So there's a few things we do here within the team to acquire art. The first two here, the direct purchase and the site-specific commission programs, those are the two main programs you will participate in. I'm going to talk briefly about the other two. The permanent collection, let's say you're on this call and you don't get any AIPP or you haven't. That doesn't mean that you are totally exempt from getting public art. If you do really want public art for your space, but you don't have any funds, we do have a small collection of permanent work that we can loan out. So feel free to reach out to us because we're happy to get you art. We never want to say no to art. So you've come to the right place if you're looking for art. Oh, okay. That's a good question from Prudence. Okay, so Prudence says, I didn't realize that AIPP funds are for us to spend and that they go into a big pot that you apply. No, you don't have to apply at all, you guys. It's just sitting there. It's your funds for you to spend. The only caveat is it has to go through us because we're the ones who hold the money. You don't actually hold it. DFA pulls that 1% automatically and they automatically set it aside in our account for you to spend later when your building is ready for art. So you don't have to worry about transferring us funds unless you're coming from a particular entity. There's a couple entities that we do have to request still from, but most of you guys, that 1% is taken out automatically. So yes, you don't have to apply. You just have to contact us and we'll help you get it started. The direct purchase program, oh, wait, let me talk about special and temporary projects. If there's anything that comes down the pike that might be a special project or a special amount of funding, whether that's from you or from us, that would be something that we could handle together. I know there's people who apply for capital outlay to do a public art project. So if you need assistance in that at all, please reach out to us. We're happy to help you run a call for art or a call for artist. So please feel free to reach out. Again, if there's anything arts and culture related or public art related, please feel free to reach out. Oh, this is a good question from Bonnie Cordova in the chat. Does it have to be a building in which the funds are allocated to, or can we use it for another building? That's a great question. So like I mentioned before about auxiliary buildings and the auxiliary fund, obviously, sometimes art and public places funds get pulled out of a building that maybe just isn't really conducive for public art. Maybe there's a high security at that building. Maybe there's just really no place to put it. Maybe the public doesn't really have free and open access to parts of this building. Talk to us. We're happy to move those funds to a more conducive site. We just have to, what we do for our records is we secure a letter from whoever, county manager, city manager, mayor, whoever needs to be the signatory on that letter. As long as we get permission from the government in order to move those funds to a more conducive site, we absolutely can do that. We don't like doing that. Obviously, we want every building to have art equally. But if it's a site that maybe we just cannot do a project at, we're more than happy to move those funds. Let's talk about direct purchase. So a direct purchase is the type of acquisition we're going to be doing with most you guys. So if you have less than $100,000 in art and public places funds, we're probably going to do a direct purchase. What that means is your local government or your local community will form a local selection committee. In the contract, we call it a regional buying committee. That's just some language that's been holding on since the 80s. But it's a local selection committee. So what that means is you guys are the ones who decide what public art goes into your space. Claude, Kirsten, and I don't make any decisions on what you choose. We don't force you guys to take any art you don't want. So it's totally up to you. You're going to form your committee, and we can walk you through those steps of how many folks need to be on that committee and so on and so forth. Then you're going to look as a committee through our current catalogs of artwork that's available. So every 2 years, we put out a call for art that's created already and ready to be installed on site. And these 4 bullet points are the 4 calls we currently do. We do a New Mexico only call that's open to only New Mexico artists or galleries representing artists in New Mexico. Each of these calls has its own price range. So that one's our lowest. It's from $1,000 to $20,000. We have our Southwest, which covers artists and galleries in our state and the 5 surrounding states, which is Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Oklahoma, Texas. Then we have a Native American Indigenous artist call. We also have a large scale call. So this is for artwork that is larger in scale, but that can mean a lot of things. It could mean size, but it also means price. So that's a call that's between 50 and 200,000 in price. Once your committee reviews these catalogs, you'll get with one of us to then review your selections. We'll then have a short little Zoom meeting, or we can do it in person. Happy to travel all the time. And what we'll do is we'll go over your selections, answer any questions you might have, talk about where the artwork will be placed. And then after that, it's all on us. We handle all the paperwork. We get together with the artists. We ensure that the artwork's going to be installed on site. The only thing we ask of you on your end is just to ensure that there's a safe and accessible area that we can install the artwork, and that you just provide that access to the artist or the gallery once they're on site. Catalogs are open biannually, and they're juried by panelists across the state. If you're interested in being a juror, please feel free to reach out to us. We try to get a nice mix of jurors who review the artwork applications that come in. And so if you're interested in making $1,000 to be a juror, come on down. Turnaround time is about 3 to 12 months from beginning to end. So from the day we talk to the day your artwork gets installed, it can be anywhere from 3 months to 12 months, just depending on how quickly people sign things and how quickly it moves through the system. Let's talk about site-specific commissions. And I see your question in the chat, Mary, about local artists, and I'm going to get to that here in this one. So site-specific commission, if you have over $100,000 in budget, whether that's AIPP and a mix of your money or just AIPP, same process a little bit in terms of forming your committee. There are required members on this committee. We do require there to be a minimum of 5 folks on this committee, and there are 3 required meetings that your entire committee has to attend in order to do a site-specific commission project. In short, what we do is we get with the committee. 9 times out of 10, it's in person. We meet, we go over what it is that you're looking for, what is the site, what is the installation, what are all the specifications, what kind of art are you looking for, what kind of artists are you looking for. Then we launch a call just for you to look for artists that may be interested in this project. You then, as a committee, will review all the applications. You'll select 5 finalists, and then those 5 finalists will move on to the proposal stage. One of the things that we harp on the most in this organization is that artists should be paid for their work. No point in any of the AIPP process are artists doing work for free. So we pay each artist to do a proposal. They get a $1,000 honorarium that comes out of the budget to do a proposal. And then they present that to your committee. It's typically in person. It's an all-day affair. Each artist goes back to back, and they present their proposals, and then you pick your winning proposal, whichever project you want to move forward to. We then contract with that artist or artist team, and it takes about 2 to 3 years from meeting one to installation on site. Big caveat here, AIPP can only be used for the acquisition and installation of original works of art. And the reason why I want to highlight that is because no, we can't buy posters. We can't take historic photographs from your community and blow them up and print them and install them in your site. Things like that, we definitely cannot use AIPP funds for. We also, unfortunately, cannot use AIPP at this time for any maintenance or conservation efforts. That's actually the last clause in our statute. So just keep that in mind. Now, before you acquire public art, few things to consider. Public art can only be installed in publicly accessible areas of your building. Okay, so we can't put art in any private offices. We can't put artwork in any locked areas or storage rooms or anything like that. So we're looking for, hallways, conference rooms, lobbies, maybe even externally. The next bullet point here says think internally and externally. So artwork can be outside. We have done exterior installations, and I'm going to show you guys a few examples. We are going to run over time, so if you have to hop off, I totally understand. And this presentation will be available online. But feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, if you have to jump off in 1 minute. Gather installation specifications. So before we get together, if you can identify possible sites where you think public art would go, that would be great. And then we can tackle those when we look at the artworks. And then also contact us to get started. Couple of questions in the chat. I guess I didn't answer your question, Bonnie, but I'll talk about it, or Mary, I'll talk about local artists. So yes, local artists for sure. In the New Mexico only call, we tend to have a lot of artists from a lot of counties, but I'll be honest, we probably don't cover everybody. And that's just because outreach, we're trying to get out there and make sure more artists are applying to our calls. So if there is a need for local artists, we can definitely talk to you. I know a lot of tribal governments and things like that, we go above and beyond to ensure that we get local artists into our calls. So we can definitely speak to you in particular about your community, what's available, and maybe who are some artists that aren't currently participating that we need to get into the program to start participating. Who pays the artist? From Bonnie. So we do. So as soon as the artwork is installed on site, and I'm going to talk about it in this slide, ownership transfers over to you guys, the owner agency, and we automatically pay the artist once you sign off. So we do ask you to say, yes, we've seen the artwork, it's been installed, it looks good, it's installed properly, it doesn't look like it's falling off the wall or coming off of its pedestal or whatever, and we sign off that we accept the artwork, how it's been installed, and then we go ahead and issue their payment. So you don't have to worry about that. It's not a reimbursement process or anything like that. We cover it. So once your public artwork's been installed, there's a few things I do want to highlight. That ownership does transfer. You guys now become the owners of this asset, and you got to think about long-term asset management. Make sure you add this new piece of artwork to your insurance policy if you don't already have a really large policy that covers things like this. Make sure you consider any ongoing maintenance. Most things that are inside, like photograph framed hanging on a wall, probably not going to need a lot of maintenance, other than make sure you don't install it somewhere where it gets a lot of direct sunlight or things like that that could damage the artwork. But if it's exterior, like this one outside Luna County Health Complex, please consider, there might be some paint touch-ups that need to happen over time. The artist will supply you with a maintenance schedule and preferred products, so you have something to go off of. But if you're totally lost, or maybe that artwork was installed 20 years ago and before your time, please reach out to us and we can at least guide you to some resources. Other things to consider is a budget. I know none of us have budgets, including some of the largest universities in the state don't have public art budgets. But keep in mind, if it's a bronze sculpture that needs to be buffed every, twice a year, there's going to have to be some funding that goes towards buying wax and rags or whatever the maintenance folks need, or if you need to hire someone to come out and do conservation efforts. Kara, I'm not sure about the presentation. I think it's going to be a part of the recording. I think DFA will house it on their website, and I think Mary put up the link to that. And she just answered your question. Sorry, I just double answered it. I'm going to answer. Oh, Jessica, great question, Jessica, about valuation of an entire collection to ensure you have appropriate insurance coverage. Is there somebody at DCA could help us? Unfortunately, we don't have anybody who does valuations or any kind of appraisals. But if you want to reach out to us, we can definitely share maybe some companies, some local companies who've done that, or maybe some folks who've done it in the past. Obviously, as the government, we can't recommend anybody in particular, but we can at least point you to some websites and some good resources. So yeah, just hit me up, Jessica. Just email me so I don't forget. Other things that do happen afterwards. The only thing that's surviving in your acquisition contract after the artwork's been placed and the artist has been paid is any kind of future reporting obligations. Let's say Luna County here wants to extend their health complex and they have to extend it in the direction of the artwork, which means we got to move that thing. That's totally cool. Just let us know where its new home will be so we can update our records and we know where this artwork is living at all times. If you need to temporarily take down some photographs or some paintings because you're doing some renovations in your building and you need to put them in storage for a few months, just let us know. Email us so we can update our system. So if anybody from the public is looking for that artwork, we can notify them and say, actually, it's currently in storage. It will be up in 6 months, yada, yada. Other things that could happen, deaccessioning. Let's say an artwork needs to be destroyed. Hopefully not. Those are very rare circumstances, but let us know. There is an entire process for that. We have to take any kind of deaccession request that you make to the Arts Commission, which is a governor-appointed board of ours, and they have to approve. So please contact us before you destroy anything. Do not destroy anything. And then resources. Please contact us if you need any kind of direction towards any resources. We're happy to help. Okay, let's look at some fun stuff while you guys are hanging in there. Some recent acquisitions. The reason why I'm showing you guys these recent acquisitions is for two purposes. One is so you see the prices, so you get an idea of what things cost. Please note the date as well. Now with tariffs and things happening, the cost of materials has gone up again. It happened during the pandemic and now it's happening again with tariffs. So please keep in mind that what you might see in artwork costing, 5 years ago may not be what it costs today. But these are some recent purchases we've done across the state. And I also am trying to show you a variety of what can be purchased through the program. So we really don't have any kind of regulations. If you go read the statute, it pretty much lists anything you can think of as a piece of visual art. So we do accept almost any medium, as long as we can protect it and we can have it behind plexiglass or ensure that it survives between 10 and 25 years, then we're good. So here's a few of those recent purchase acquisitions. And you can see too where they're installed. Hey, Prudence, I see your question there in the chat. Can you use more than the AIPP allocation in our grant to procure the art? Do you mean like us taking more than 1%? If you can elaborate. Yes. Oh, you're bad. Okay, yeah, that would be cool. I would love to take all your money. Just kidding. No, We can't unfortunately take more than 1%, as that is a part of the Art in Public Places Act. So that is a law, and that says that 1% is the max we could take. Now, with that being said, you know, if you can set aside anything within your budget, I'm skipping ahead here, then yeah, we could combine funds, but I don't think I can take more than 1% out of your appropriation, even if you grant me permission. That would probably become a back end accounting nightmare for DFA. So I don't know if we really want to go down that road, but I love the enthusiasm. Here are now some recent site specific commissions we've done. So these are projects close to 100K or over 100K. The reason why this one in particular at the NHCC is less than is because it is our sister division within DCA. So this is actually kind of a DCA project. But you can see here what those larger kind of projects look like. Oh, that's a great question, Susie. So any ideas for outdoor art in a location where tagging or graffiti is common? What happens if the art gets damaged? That's a great question. So, statistically speaking, there's actually been studies that prove that public art in a location actually deters graffiti and any kind of crime or that kind of related vandalism is what I was looking for. Vandalism, graffiti, littering. Statistically speaking, public art actually can help deter that. So putting public art in an area can actually be a good solution if you have a big graffiti problem. You know, maybe we put a mural there, not a mural, but maybe we put something like a mural, or maybe we put something like a sculpture or something in that area. And if it gets damaged, that's kind of a different sort of question. So there is two things here. One, there is a warranty, a 5-year warranty on any artwork you acquire with regards to craftsmanship of the original artwork. So let's say the artist builds, let's look at Karen Yanks right here that I'm on. Let's say, you know, some of these parts of the petals start falling off. Well, that's a craftsmanship issue. That means something happened, either the welder that she hired to create this piece didn't do a good job. If that happens in the first 5 years, you're covered. The artist is fiscally responsible for fixing that. They need to go out and rectify that. Now, if it's vandalism, hopefully you have this on your insurance policy and you'll have to make an insurance claim, and then you'll have to hire a conservator to come out and fix the artwork. We always recommend that you contact us so we can help you contact the original artist, because the original artist probably wants to have a little say in how anything gets cleaned up or fixed. So please reach out to us if that's a situation, and we need that artwork fixed. So that's kind of an answer. I'm showing this project because this is a project we're currently working on. That's why it's just a render, but this is at New Mexico Tech. And again, I'm just trying to show you guys a variety of what can be done with art and public places funds. It doesn't necessarily need to be a sculpture, quote unquote, but this is a really cool creative project that we're doing in New Mexico Tech that provides a shade structure and a seating area in their quad. So yeah, so think about, you know, public art can look a lot of different ways. Thank you for hanging in there an extra 10 minutes, you guys. Here's our contact information. My team is embarrassed AF because I just put a funny photo of them up. But please feel free to reach out to any of us. If you have any more questions or if there's anything else you think of afterwards, feel free to email any of us or give us a call, and we're here to help you get some public art. I hope that was inspiring. I hope you had some cool ideas percolating. Thank you for your time. I'll pass it back to Scott for the wrap up.
So thank you, Meredith, and thank you, team. Just when I think I know everything about AIPP, you always blow me away. So I appreciate you all being here and the collaboration, and thanks everyone for attending. If you have any questions for us, please feel free to reach out, but thank you very much for being here. We appreciate it. Have a great rest of the day.